Chapter 11. When the rain stopped, Martin felt his footpaws touching solid ground beneath the water. He stood upright, with the sea lapping his neck, shaking Rose and Grum, who had both fallen asleep. Land, we've made it. Help me push this oar ashore. Hardly feeling the wood of the paddle, their bodies numbed from constant immersion in cold seawater, the three friends crawled out onto a sandy beach situated at the foot of high, dark cliff formations. They sat on the sand, shivering and hungry, their teeth chattering and paws trembling uncontrollably. Through salt-bleared eyes, Grum peered up at the cliffs. "Wonder what be up there." Rose and Grum staggered onto their paws. Martin rose stiffly, massaging his limbs. "Some small cave where we can shelter for the night, I hope. Do you two want to rest here while I take a look?" Rose and Grum staggered onto their paws. "I don't like it here. Grum and I will go with you."
Aye, 'tis creepy around in here."
The rocks were dark and slippery from the rain. Martin went in front, with Rose bringing up the rear. They kept Grum in the middle, as he was not a very good climber. Moles seldom are. Holding the paddle between them, they strove upwards, scrabbling and sometimes sliding back in the darkness. After what seemed an eternity of grappling with the wet cliff face, they rested on a narrow ledge. The three friends sat catching their second wind, listening to the tide far below as it surged and hissed along the night-cloaked shore. Martin peered upwards. "I think if we climb a little further, there's a much broader ledge above us. There's bound to be some sort of cave or crevice where we can shelter."
"Can't I stay here?"
Grum sighed wearily.
"My pesky old paws be gone or sleeping on I."
Rose rubbed her mole friend's paws vigorously.
"Poor Grum. Champion diggers can't be champion climbers, too. Not far to go now, and you can have a good sleep. I'll get breakfast tomorrow, so you can have a little extra lie-in."
This offer perked Grum up no end.
"Oh, thank ye kindly, Miss Roser. You're a good beast."
Martin gave an involuntary shiver.
"There's something about this place I don't like. Still, this is where we landed, and beggars can't be choosers. Come on."
All three had their paws on the rim of the ledge after a short, hard climb, when the nets came hurling down and enveloped them. Tough, close-woven meshes of kelp weighted down all around with stones. The friends were swept from the rock face and held dangling, their paws, tails, and heads entangled in the snaring nets. Tiny dark shapes, masses of them, gibbered and pranced on the broad ledge as they hauled their catch swiftly upwards. It was over in a flash. Martin, Rose, and Grum were landed like fishes and swiftly clubbed into unconsciousness. Swimming up through dark mists, Martin's head lanced with pain as he opened his eyes in bright sunlight. A stick prodded him sharply in the back.
"Mickey Mouse, wake up! Mugga, good catch 'em!"
The young mouse opened his eyes fully and saw he was boxed inside a stout wooden cage. Tiny mouse-like creatures with long wiggling snouts surrounded the cage. They danced up and down with excitement. One, more venturesome than the rest, darted forward and jabbed Martin's paw with a sharpened stick.
Gotcha, Mickey Mouse! Not so big now!"
The young mouse reacted speedily. With a swipe, he snapped the stick, baring his teeth savagely as he gripped the wooden bars.
"Get out of it, you gibbering little idiots, and leave me alone!"
He shouted so loudly that the tiny creatures scattered like chaff before the wind, clapping paws over their ears. Martin glared through the cage at them, growling fiercely.
"Keep your distance, or I'll eat you all."
He flashed his teeth several times, sending fresh pain waves through his throbbing head. Rubbing a sizable bump on the back of his skull, Martin looked around and took stock of his position. His cage was in the entrance to a large cave. On the opposite wall, he could see two other wooden cages, in which the senseless forms of Rose and Grum lay. More of the tiny creatures passed, giving him a wide berth. They were carrying several fish, which had been lashed to driftwood poles. Smelts, shannies, and butterfish they had brought up from the shore. Behind them, carrying nets and fishing gear, came a hedgehog. His footpaws had been bound to a heavy log that he was forced to tow in his wake. Martin shook the cage bars, calling to him.
Hey, what is this place? And who are all these little wretches?
The hedgehog gave Martin a quick smile and a friendly wink.
I'm Palom. Be still. I'll get back to you.
He was urged on by more little creatures following up the rear.
Elephant piggy, mouth shut.
As they passed into the recesses of the cave, Grum stirred.
My poor old lad, it be bumping and banging awfully.
The sound of the mole's voice seemed to waken Rose. Immediately, she was up on her paws, and despite her aching head, she battered and tugged at the bars of her cage.
Let me out of here this instant, do you hear? Let me out!
Grum held paws over his ears.
Oh, don't you make such a great noise, Missy. You'll hurting my brains.
Martin was relieved his friend had suffered no permanent damage.
Grum's right, Rose. Best lie still. How do you feel?
The mousemaid managed a wan smile.
Apart from being caged up with an ache in my head and a bump like a thrush's egg, plus a raging thirst and an empty stomach, I feel fine. How are you this morning?
Martin grinned wryly.
Actually, I feel pretty silly. Wait until you see the beasts who did this to us. As if on cue, several of the tiny creatures materialized out of the dimness at the rear of the cave.
Grum nodded.
Pygmy shrews, I might have knowed.
Pygmy shrews?
Martin echoed the name questioningly. The hedgehog came lumbering up to them, surrounded by pygmy shrews. They chattered ceaselessly in their odd dialect, some of them sitting impudently on the hedgehog's towing log, their ride adding to the burden he dragged along. It did not seem to bother him unduly. He smiled in a foolish, disarming way.
Hello there. Hello there. It's me, Palom. Listen, never look angry in front of pygmy shrews. Smile all the time. It confuses them.
Martin pasted a large grin on his face as he introduced himself and his friends. The shrews were never still, hopping, jumping, dancing, and gabbling on in an unintelligible manner. The one that jabbed Martin with a stick began to do it once more. The young mouse dodged this way and that to avoid the sharp wood, grinning furiously as he spoke from between clenched teeth.
Palom, let me tell you something, friend. In a moment, I'm going to grab that stick and stuff it up that little wretch's long, squiggly excuse for a nose.
Palom shook his head smilingly.
It'd be the worst day's work you ever did, Martin. These are babies. Squidgies is their proper title. The tiny scum poking you with a stick is the worst brat of all. That's Dinger, one and only son and heir to Ambala, queen of the pygmy shrews. She'd have you killed for sure if you laid paw on her little darling. Wait a moment. I think I can stop him. Turning to the offender, Palom addressed him in pygmy shrew language. Piggy, Dinger good, you pokemore big mouse. Dinger stopped instantly and began trying vainly to belabor Palom's spiky hide with the stick.
Pin piggy, shut her mouth. Not tell Danger what to do.
Palom chuckled as the infant flailed unsuccessfully at his spikes. Contrary little snips. Best way to stop 'em is to encourage 'em. They'll always do the opposite to what you want, especially this one. Rose wiped a paw across her parched lips. Palom, is there any chance of us getting some food and water? A tiny drum sounded from within the cave. Palom held up a paw. That'll be the Queen Ambala. When you speak to her, bow your head and call her Balamum. Be very respectful. She's vindictive and all-powerful around here. Don't mention the word higgig. That means you are laughing, and she might think you are laughing at her. Please do as I say, and leave the rest to me. Ambala was a plump little figure. She wore golden pantaloons and a cloak of light blue. On her head was a coronet studded with bright shell pieces and small polished beach pebbles. A seagull feather stuck up at the back of it. Had she not been such an important personage, the three friends would have burst out laughing at the comical sight she made. Drawing herself up to the peak of her minuscule height, she pointed a tiny sword at Martin.
Bigger mouse, you. What name say? Oh, Balamum. I am Martin.
The young mouse bowed his head, speaking respectfully.
That other mouse is called Rose, and the mole is Grum. We mean no harm to you or your tribe of pygmy shrews.
Ambala leaped forward in rage, jabbing through the bars with her sword so that Martin was forced to jump backwards.
Bigger mouth! What shrew pygmy? No shrew pygmy hereabout.
Palam towed his log forward, interceding on Martin's behalf.
Mighty great Balamum, silly mouse no not tribe name high beast. Still sleeping bottle from Bang-a-Bang on head place.
Martin caught on to Palam's message and rubbed his head, muttering, "Ugh, sleepy muddle, sleepy muddle." Ambala squinted suspiciously for a moment before she appeared satisfied. Then she broke into laughter.
I be giving you plenty bang-a-bang. You gotta sleep asleep, son, quick.
Martin nodded ruefully.
High beast mighty warriors, bang-a-bang plenty hurt.
Palam winked approvingly at Martin before tackling Ambala on behalf of her captives.
Oh, Balamum, no give these silly beasts mouthful or glug a drink. They not get Arblewood and caretake squidgies. Balamum, kill him dead.
The queen made as if to kick Palam, but did not because of his spikes. She drew herself up and proclaimed regally,
Balamum say this. No feed lazy mouths work a neat. Bring Abelwoods. Silly beasts make a good squeegee nurses.
The pygmy shrew tribe laughed with her as they jigged and cavorted about the cave. Palam looked astonished at the queen.
Great Balamum, wisest eyes beast, how you think of this?
Ambala curled her lip disdainfully.
Because me not pin piggy. Me Balamum of all high beast.
Later that afternoon, the three friends sat eating nut-studded shrew bread and drinking dandelion cordial. Like Palam, their footpaws had been skillfully bound to hefty logs, which they had to drag round as they walked. Martin kicked at his.
Hobblewood. A wooden hobble. Not only that, but we've got to play nursemaid to those tiny squidgy hooligans. I think I would have preferred death.
Rose giggled.
Oh, come on, Martin. You love them, really. Especially little Dinger.
At the mention of the villainous infant, Martin clenched his paws.
Oh, yes. I love him so much, I could hug him right around his foul little neck, tighter and tighter.
Grum finished his meal hurriedly.
Look out! Here comes the little vermin and his crew.
Headed by Dinger, a crowd of squidgies descended on the captives. They spilled the cordial and thrust aside the shrew bread. Dinger prodded Martin with his stick impatiently.
Now, bigger mouse, we go put her right on Abelwoods.
Martin and Grum spent the remainder of the afternoon towing gangs of squidgies around. The tiny beasts sat on the wooden hobbles, singing and laughing uproariously as they urged their transports on to greater speeds. Rose had been detailed with Palam into cleaning up the little one's sleeping area and making beds. Martin and his friends picked up much of the pygmy shrew's language during the course of the day. It was relatively simple when they realized that the high beast tribe spoke by running words together in pairs, sometimes in threes. Toward evening, Martin and Grum supervised Squidgy's supper time. The mole wiped wild oat porridge from between his ears where a bowl had been upturned.
Them squingers certainly be wild little villains. Even I had my ladle to pour. Why, I'd tan a few tails, I tell you.
The Squidgies, who could not understand a single word of mole talk, chuckled madly as they squirted strawberry cordial from their mouths at the mole. Martin sighed, the fixed smile on his face beginning to hurt. They've got the table manners of a wolf pack. Great seasons! Look at the way they waste food and mess it about. Palom and Rose appeared, smiling dutifully. Come, come, sleepy time.
Squidger babes, sleepy time.
This was the signal for a mass escape. The infant pygmy shrews fled, squealing, to hide, wanting the captives to chase them.
Catch it! Chasey mouse!
Palom knew all the hiding places from long experience. As they gathered the little ones up for bed, Martin noticed Ambala and several of the other pygmy shrews watching them carefully, lest they became rough-pawed or spoke harshly to the babes. Squidgies were almost revered in the high beast tribe. The tiny beasts ran wild over the newly made beds, flinging the covers about and trampling pillows. What do we have to do to make these rogues sleep, Palom? Martin groaned. Sing a song. Instantly, the Squidgies flung themselves flat on their beds, straightening the covers about them and pumping pillows as they called out,
Sing a song! We want to sing a song!
Palom immediately began singing. Go to sleep, you filthy bunch. I'd love to lay you all out with the punch. How to win a mother's heart with a squiggly trunk like an eel's back part. Is that awful smell the reason you haven't been washed all season? So go to sleep in your scruffy beds. May nightmares enter your beastly heads. And when sunlight heralds the new daybreak, may you wake with tummy ache. Strangely, the Squidgies were half asleep. Smiling and yawning, they mumbled,
Very nice, very nice. Sing a more.
Stifling a chuckle, Grum took over with his deep, soothing bass.
A dreadful, horrible crew, and I wouldn't give to you. Supper nor dinner, breakfast nor tea, I'd spank the daylights out of ye. And I'd make ye wash 10 times each day till your bad manners were scrubbed away.
Tiny snores announced that the Squidgies were all asleep. Rose mopped her brow with relief.
Think this season's the little monsters are finished for the day. Small wonder their mothers don't look after them.
Palom pointed to some spare mattresses in the corner. All right, you can stop smiling now and get some rest. Lie there and relax. I'll go and get supper for us. I think I saw a big mixed fruit pudding with cream and some new cider. Grum flopped down thankfully, swiftly followed by Martin and Rose. Their wooden hobbles clackled together noisily, and Rose winced as she held up a paw.
Shh! Not so much noise. You might waken the monsters.
Brr, I'd throw myself off any cliff top if it ain't wicked.
From slavery to slavery in one easy paw step. Where will it end?
Martin sighed loud and long. Rose shook his paw comfortingly.
In Noonvale, someday. We won't be here all our lives with a warrior like you about, Martin. Being a nursemaid is not in your stars. I wonder what became of Brom and Feldo. They'll have drifted into land, no doubt. That Feldo is a good tough squirrel. I know he'll look after my brother. I hope they're safe and well.
Martin could hardly keep his eyes open as he watched Palom approaching bearing a heavily laden tray.
Wherever Feldo and Brom landed up,
They couldn't possibly be worse off than us. Nursemaids to those tiny rogues.